Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Burke with the Schiller Institute, and I'm proud to introduce you to someone who I've known for a couple of years now. This is Timothy Ninsiima. Timothy is currently working with a company called Magic Coatings Limited in Uganda as a chemical officer. He's a graduate finalist for a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Geoscience and Production, and he's awaiting his graduation in January of 2026 from Makerere University in Kampala. He served as the president of the Makerere University Petroleum and Geology Society from 2023 to 2024. He's an energy enthusiast and a young, upcoming Pan-Africanist and African activist. So thank you very much for having this interview with me today, Timothy. How are you?
All right, Daniel, thank you for having me.
Great. I've been working with Helga LaRouche to try to organize international youth dialogues. And Timothy and I, we spoke partly because of the fact that we at the Schiller Institute really wanted to support the efforts of students in Makerere University to support the East Africa crude oil pipeline, which a couple of years ago was a major effort to propagandize against this, coming from certain European figures, and to try to prevent Uganda from having, and other parts of East Africa from having the economic development that they deserve. But we began to have in-depth conversations about the principles of the coming 50 to 100 years of human society, of human civilization, and the major changes that are happening in the world today. And that's why we're here today. It's because we're continuing to have those conversations. So the first thing I want to pose to you is this the effects or the significance of these major developments that have happened in China since the end of August. We had the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Tianjin, which represented a huge majority of the Eurasian nations and their populations. And then we also had the 80th anniversary of the defeat of fascism held in Beijing of the in the anti-fascist war, World War II, the defeat against the Japanese in particular at that point. And this marks the beginning, I think, and Helga Zepp-LaRouche has urged us to consider that these kinds of developments, if you look at what they really represent and how these leaders from the Global South are collaborating really with the Bandung spirit, from the spirit of the Bandung Conference of 1955, that we're looking at the beginning of a new era in human history, in which peace through development is becoming the dominant concept of international relations among all countries except for the so-called Western countries that are persisting in their wrong-headed and really disastrous policies at the moment. So my question to you is, as you reflect on this, what do you think is this new situation, and specifically, what does it have to do with the the future of young people in the global South?
Thank you very much for such a wonderful question. I think the new situation means well for the youth in the global south. The new situation, which has manifested, creates opportunities. It means peace for the world. Opportunities where the youth in the global south have to shape their own destiny. Opportunities where the youth will stand proud and they look at themselves that what did we do to make our countries great again. The Shanghai Cooperation, consisting of which was started in 2001, consisting of member states like China and Russia, has beautiful goals as how we saw last week. And among these goals is to strengthen mutual trust, friendship between member states, and also encouraging cooperation between member states in spheres such as politics, trade, economy, science, and technology. Now, for the youth in Global South, science and technology presents opportunities where the youth now have to work hand in hand to make sure that they invent, they will innovate, and do everything to make sure that our countries are now on the global stage. The youth are presented now with an opportunity to engage in politics, which make their countries bigger players on the global world stage, and also to participate in trade, among others, but also not participating because they also have to are presented with an opportunity the to interrogate the existing financial architecture. The youth now should ask themselves, why is it that the global south has been lagging behind for so long, and their economies are designed in the way that can monies flow from their countries to the west. So when we look at opportunities such as that, as when we look at the Shanghai Cooperation and the parade which was hosted, we should be energized as the youth in the global south to participate in anything that makes our countries great. And we should also interrogate the existing imperialistic narratives which have made us inferior, because events such as those which were events such as the Shanghai Cooperation and other events which have been happening like the BRICS among others
Hmm.
should really teach us a lesson that we should rise up in unity and do everything to make our countries going, because we are not children of a lesser god. We can also become like other countries, but we should do that through equality. And if there is a situation that is making us unequal, we should rise up and challenge it. So if it means to go in the military, like how I saw the young Chinese in the military, we should go there. Like if it means that participating in innovation, as long as everything is making us great, we should do anything. Anything. Now looking at the parade, I closely watched the parade. I think
Mm.
it's one of the biggest parades, bigger than that of 2019, where the Chinese were marking 70 years since the setting up of their country. But it was a well staged event. I saw uniformity everywhere. It was a massive event. But I think
Hmm.
that event was meant to send a message to the West that there is a new developing global world order, a world order where China, Russia, and the countries are the contenders and opposing to the existing order of the West, which has been making people, which has been making countries, which has been deciding for countries, which has been really doing anything to suppress developing countries. So we should, so that parade, because we saw military equipment ranging from new to old, we saw advanced military equipment. I think that one showed that China could be in the future, could be a very big alternative, should provide a very big, could be like a better alternative to the United States, and even it can give guarantees for security. What the US can give, even the Chinese could give. But also for the youth in global South,
Mm.
I think this parade shows should also awaken our minds to see that there is a new developing global world order where we should take part, and also we should participate to make sure that we shape our own futures and our own destinies.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
And I noted your comment about interrogating the present international financial order, which of course was
yes,
discussed significantly at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, including
yes,
from Russia, I believe it was President Putin who discussed the need to ensure that the neo-colonialist forms of financial control are no longer allowed to continue and that this is reformed. And then, of course,
Yes.
you have from China the proposal for major developments towards a Shanghai Cooperation Organization Development Bank, which would be a further way of really consolidating this devotion to establishing the financial architecture for development across the global South. So very interesting to see what will come from that. Um, you
Yes.
I want to raise something that stood out to me recently from Russian press. I saw an interview my friend sent me with the Director General of Rosatom, whose name is Alexei Likachev. And
Yes.
it was an interview basically about how Russia's going to help China to massively continue the expansion of their nuclear power capability. But the thing that really stood out for me from the comments was that he said, "I think we can predict cooperation both in breadth and in depth, not for decades, but for centuries." And this strikes me as a completely different, I mean, it's an expression of the new paradigm that you could have nations cooperate on the frontiers of science and have a confidence that they could do that over a century or centuries into the future. So, if it is true that we can get to this stage where nations can collaborate on scientific development over the course of centuries, what should we focus on? What is it that's going to really lift the human species up? What's your view?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I think there is no wrong in nations collaborating. Every sovereign nation should collaborate with each and every state it feels like, as long as it's not encroaching on the liberty of others. The collaboration should be in mutual interest and mutual benefit. But we've been having an order where cooperation has been defined to us by the hegemonic powers. But I think speaking particularly for Africa, the cooperation or the advancements we should focus on are those which should make our continent great. And for me, there are three which I feel that these ones, if we don't have them, can pose an existential threat to our nations, to our African nations. One, I think it's in energy. If we can do collaboration in energy, where we develop energy which should allow us to industrialize, where we develop energy which allows us to exist, to cook our food, to use it in transportation, because energy particularly is in everything. Everything is energy. I'm even able to speak to you because of energy. I charge my phone. So, but we find that countries in the global south, particularly in Africa, are energy poor. So I think the collaboration should be more in energy. For example, we can also collaborate in nuclear energy and nuclear technology. I think there is no harm in African countries collaborating in such spheres, because we know nuclear energy provides better power or more power than other energies. But we find that we are in a situation where we are producing uranium for others. For countries, for example, Niger was producing uranium for France, and the Niger is energy poor. Uganda is producing only 2,000 megawatts. For sure, you cannot industrialize with 2,000 megawatts. You cannot. So if there is cooperation in energy, producing fossil fuels, as long as we can get energy, producing nuclear energy, nuclear technology, and even we can also collaborate in renewables. We have no problem with renewables. But as long as they add on our energy power, I think there is no harm in collaborating in such advancement. Another one is food sovereignty. We find that in Africa, we have a challenge. We have beautiful land. We have beautiful climate, but we find that we don't have food.
Mm.
I think if we have collaboration in food so that we can ensure our own food sovereignty. It should not be about food security. It should be about food sovereignty. Can we ensure that we have food in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? We should have that stable supply, because somebody cannot think about artificial intelligence when he's hungry, when
Mhm.
he has not eaten. I think you first cater for the stomach before anything comes. So we can also collaborate in food. We can also collaborate in other technologies. For example, artificial intelligence. Right now, I think Africa has been left out. You
Mm.
can see that China is inventing the DeepSeek as an AI. America is investing ChatGPT. But for what are we investing as Africans?
Mm.
We are investing none. We are just spectating. I think we should also, if there is a collaboration in technology such as artificial intelligence, that would be a very good one. It could also make sure that we also rise up to the global stage and we be diners, not waiters on the dinner table or an
Mhm.
international table. Then I think finally we can also collaborate in advanced health care, because in particular speaking for Africa, our health care is not so good. We find that we have dilapidated infrastructure as far as healthcare is concerned. We cannot produce our own vaccines sometimes because in COVID we were busy lamenting, looking for free vaccines, but countries were vaccinating theirs. So if we could have, I think, collaboration in ensuring that we have advanced health care so that we have a healthy population, that could be good for our continent, particularly speaking for that. But also, I think because I'm an energy enthusiast, the collaboration could also be in fossil fuels,
Yes.
because Uganda, particularly where I come from, is a country which is producing oil with around 6.5 billion barrels and 1.4 recoverable. So I think countries and China is doing well in this field because their companies have come to work with our companies to see that we collaborate in the area of fossil fuel, where we develop our reserves, we transport, because China is doing a lot. I think if we can do more collaboration in areas such as fossil fuels, that could be great for our continent, particularly speaking for Africa, and also good for the larger global south.
Thank you. Um, I mean, you've addressed a lot of the specific things that you think need to be done for the areas that you think need to be done for Africa in this type of collaboration. Let me ask you to say a little bit more specifically about the situation for African youth, and if you could also speak to your identity as a Pan-Africanist. What is the future for young people within that framework, as you see it?
The future, pardon?
In other words, you've spoken about you've spoken about these areas of cooperation on science and technology that you think need to come forward for African nations. And I'd like you to expand on what is in particular the situation for African youth, what should be done for African youth now and into the future. And I wonder if you can add some thoughts about what it means that to you that you identify as a Pan-Africanist. What does that imply? For many of the people listening to this may not really understand how you think of it.
I identify as a Pan-Africanist because I think I have views that are designed to make our continent great. I think it's also part of me to do anything to make sure that Africa is like the big superpower countries we see all, and that should be done through peace, through activism, through opposing neo-colonial narratives that are designed to make us inferior. Because remember, I told you that we are not children of a lesser God. If others are like us, that means we can be like them.
Hmm.
But the situation, I think what the African youth should be, I think we need a mindset change, because what I see Africa, that we've been decolonized and our minds have been decolonized. We might have survived the classical colonialism where we used to fight battles, but now I think the bigger problem is in our minds, because you find that I'm not meaning to demean this, but you find that an African an African youth is dying to watch maybe Western football when there are football leagues in Africa, and he cannot. He feels that it's only Premier League, it's only maybe La Liga, Serie A, which is the most, which are beautiful leagues. But remember, we also have our leagues, and those leagues became powerful because they were supported. I think we also need to empower the African youth to think that he's not a child of a lesser God, and he can do anything, and he can become a great person who can develop his continent. It's all about changing his mind, decolonizing everything, doing everything to decolonize his mind.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
Well, I think you've covered a lot. This is really productive conversation. I guess I want to sort of come to a cap on it and sort of turn to another mm, perspective. Of course, with the Schiller
Yes,
Institute, as you know, we've been doing everything we can to introduce the idea of a new international security and development architecture and certain principles that would be required for that to become a just world architecture for every nation and for all the peoples within those nations, such that people can reach their fullest potential. We're working uh, very hard here in the West to try to change
yes,
our governments away from these policies that are so damaging. And Mrs. LaRouche has produced, for example, a new statement, Mrs. Helga Zepp LaRouche, calling on the nations of the West to join hands with the global South and this new paradigm and cooperate with it to create this new and productive future for the species as a whole. Um, but one of the hypotheses that we have is that what you need to do if you're going to change governments is that you have to, change the policies of governments, change the ideas that are behind those governments, is that you need to have a movement of young people, students, youth, people who realize that there's no future without this type of cooperation, that we're headed towards a real catastrophe, which we've seen many expressions of that recently, and we see it especially in the ongoing destruction of lives in the genocide that Israel is perpetrating on Palestine. Of course, many other horrific developments that are happening all over the world that are driven by this kind of colonialist mindset. So we have to gather people together to challenge that and replace these terrible anti-human ideas with true ones that would carry us forward into the future in a peaceful and productive way, harmonious way. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Is it possible? How would we do it? How do we organize young people to take responsibility for the next 50 years and to have a vision, a beautiful vision that they can fight for? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's beautiful. What you've said is true, that we should organize the youth, but I think we can do it in a way that we organize forums such as this, productive forums, to and also supply literature to teach them. Because what I've seen in Africa here is that people are misinformed. People don't have the information, the right information, and also sometimes the media they watch ends up putting a narrative which is not true. For example, when you see in most of the media which we watch, Western media, when you see the bombardments of innocent children in Gaza. Sometimes and they show you one side. Sometimes you think that it's you should support the killing of the innocent children in Gaza, but that's not true. I think it's all about bringing up alternative media, the alternative information, and that information should be good. That information should be true, and it should change our narratives and also wipe away the neo-colonial minds. But we can do it in forums such as this, organizing conferences, international conferences, and I've seen Shira Institute is doing great wonders in that. Also publishing publications. Let's write so that
Yeah.
we can ensure that we we are equals. We can ensure that we develop the global south and also make peace in our world, but through another architecture.
Timothy, it's just really a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad we had this chance, and I think we have to have another conversation soon that we can share with
Definitely.
people because your voice is really important for people to hear all over the world.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, take care. Talk soon.
Thank you.